Friends, we are going to deal with a poem by the great 17th century poet John Donne. Here we can see the details of the life of John Donne. He was born in the year 1572 and died in the year 1631. He is called as the founder of the metaphysical school of poetry and also the greatest representative of the metaphysical poets. He was born of a family with a strong Roman Catholic tradition. He was educated at the Trinity College of Cambridge. Before we move on to the next slide, I would like to tell you a bit about what is meant by metaphysical school of poetry and metaphysical poets. Metaphysical school of poetry was a group of poets, though they never came together and discussed poetry, but there was a theme running in the poetry of these poets. The meaning of the word metaphysical is also very interesting. As we can understand, physical. So, metaphysical is beyond physical features or beyond physical attributes of something or someone. So, this school of poetry was not happy with describing the physical elements or in understanding the physical attributes of something and calling it as the complete understanding of the thing. They believed that there is a connection between dissimilar things. The things in the physical nature of themselves may be different, but beyond their physicality, they have a strong interconnections with each other. So, with this view, they wanted to find out how physically different things are metaphysically connected with each other. So, their attempt was to find out a unified theory or a unified understanding of the universe. As the universe is diverse, as the things appear to be very different to one another, but they believed that if we look from the right perspective, if we look at the things by their internal qualities or their internal attributes, which are beyond the physical nature of those things, then we can understand them better. And so they focus more on the internal attributes or metaphysical, beyond physical attributes of those things, and thereby understand them and thereby have a broader view of the things in themselves. So, this was a school of poetry. This was a group of poets, though not formally group because they never came together or they did not discuss that we will write poetry like this. But there was a similarity between the writings of these poets, and he was the one who started that school. That's why he is called as the founder of the metaphysical school of poetry. He is also the greatest representative, even though there were some other poets, but he is the one who is called as the most representative kind of poet. And if you want to know what metaphysical poetry is, then by reading John Donne, we can understand all those things. Now, the second thing that I have mentioned here is that he was from a Roman Catholic family. Now, during the times of 1572 and 1631, as we can see, this is mostly the time of Queen Elizabeth I and also the time of James I. During these times, Protestantism was the official religion of England. And living in England in those times when Roman Catholics were hunted down and they were tortured for various reasons for not believing in in Protestantism, it was very hard. And John Donne endured all those times. He endured these things and he practiced Catholic tradition. He was from Catholic tradition, and he was not just educated in religious terms. He was a college educated person. He was educated at the famous Trinity College in Cambridge, which is also known for its teachings in theology. So John Donne was such a poet. And if we look at the young John Donne, what we come to know is that he was very adventurous and he was a travel going person, a wanderlust kind of person. And he had gone on expedition 1596. And then he became secretary to Lord Keeper Egerton. And during those times, he eloped with the niece of Lord Keeper, and he was also imprisoned by the girl's father. For several years after his release from the jail, he lived in poverty, and poverty was his lifelong companion. He lived in utter poverty throughout his life. But during this time, he wrote some of his most beautiful poems, many of which were believed to have been written to his wife, with whom he had eloped. And these were known as youthful love lyrics. So, in his life, if we find out what is in abundance, then there is death and poverty. These things are in abundance. He was married in the year 1601. He had 12 children, and just seven survived. Five children died in their early ages. His wife also died 16 years later in 1617, and thereafter he never remarried. In a state of despair, he noted that the death of a child would mean one less mouth to feed, but he could not afford the burial expenses. So you can understand the situation that he was in. So even though he had 12 children, only seven survived, and he was not worried about the surviving or dying children. He was more worried about what to feed them. You can understand the poverty in which he lived. Then this is the place where he lived. In 1615, he gave up Catholic faith and he entered the Anglican Church. As I told you that during those times, being a Catholic was a dangerous thing, and he converted to Protestantism, and he became also the dean of St. Paul's Church. So he accepted Protestantism and also started practicing, preaching that religion to the people. And he became the most famous preacher during the time. He wrote many religious sermons and poems, and one of the poems that we are going to see also deal with his religious themes, and these were known as sacred verses. If we look at the timeline of the things that happened in his life, then he was a Roman Catholic in Protestant England, which I told you was not a safe thing. He studied at Cambridge and Oxford, so he was well educated, university educated. And in his life, he also saw imprisonment because he married Anne Moore. She was 16 years old, niece of his employer. In 1615, he became Anglican priest. He had a scientific mind, and he is also called as post-Copernican man of intellect. Now let's understand what is meant by post-Copernican. So we all know Copernicus, the great scientist who supported the theory that Earth revolves around the sun. During those times, having such type of opinions was not an easy thing because Bible clearly stated that the Earth is the creation of the God, and everything on the earth and in the sky is also created by the God, and all these spheres around the earth are created by the God. In total, there are seven spheres imagined by Bible, and Dante's Divine Comedy also says the same thing. So, in this way, during those times, to support Copernicus was a dangerous thing because he was against the religion, according to those people. His science was against the religion, and people did not accept his theories easily. They were just trying to find out some excuse so that they can hunt him down. During those times, he was a scientific person, so you can understand how turbulent his life must have been. Then he became the dominant figure of the school of 17th century poetry, English poetry, which is called as the metaphysical poets. And then again, we have to go into details of metaphysical poetry. Uh, it was one of the first modern writers. Uh, Donne was one of the first modern writers. And if we look at John Donne's personality, then the construction of a historical self becomes crucial to the text and their interpretation. So here we are going to see how that person's self was, how he was as a person, and how that personality has reflected in the text. And by that way,